What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, the sequel to the 2014 reboot. Now, I'm going to do my best to make this review as short as I possibly can. I overall thought that the sequel to the 2014 reboot is an actual better movie. It still has problems unto itself, but it makes a lot of improvements to a lot of things. So, without wasting no time, let's get right into this. I'm going to illustrate what I liked and what I didn't like. So, things that I liked. Once again, I enjoyed the dynamic with all four of the turtles. Most of the voice cast from that first movie returns, with the notable exception of Johnny Knoxville being replaced by Pete Poleski, who replaces Knoxville as the voice of Leonardo. And I actually think that Pete Poleski did a much better job than Johnny Knoxville. I think Poleski has a much more commanding presence and a much more commanding voice as Leonardo, and I think he was really good in the role as well. Poleski was also the motion capture actor who played Leonardo in the first movie. Now he's getting a chance to actually portray him through voice as well, and he did a very fine, solid job. This movie, focuses a lot. Doesn't focus a lot on it, but we see some of that Raph and Leo feuding that is great in Turtles lore, and it really adds to the characters of Raph and Leo. This movie shows us that as Raph and Leo come into conflict after they discover that there's this mutagen that can turn the turtles human. And Leo tells Donatello to kind of keep it secret, leading to Michelangelo kind of telling it to Raph, which causes a lot of friction between the four brothers as a whole. And I like that. I think it works because it plays really well into the end, and where they reject the serum and decide to stay as turtles. So it's a good character arc for all four of the brothers in this movie as they wrestle with that, and I like it a lot. And again, their personalities in this movie, they all shine, and they get a lot to do. We get to see a lot of good bantering. We get to see Mikey hang out with Raphael, and you see the difference between Raphael's hard-assness and Michael's cool guyness. And then we see Donatello and Leonardo kind of team together too. Donnie's expertise going off Leo's stern leadership quality, and it works. It's good dynamic. It's good quality. Tony Shalhoub Splinter returns once again, and I thought he was fine in this movie. Though this movie doesn't really have a whole lot of Splinter in it. Splinter's mostly in the background, mainly because now we have the inclusion of Casey Jones, played by Stephen Amell, and I like Stephen Amell as an actor, and I enjoyed his portrayal as Casey Jones to an extent. In this version, Casey Jones is a New York City corrections officer who wants to be a detective. This movie makes a passing reference to his fondness for hockey, but I would have preferred if Casey Jones actually had a hockey background. If we actually see him play hockey instead of it being told through dialogue, I'd like to see scenes with that. Particularly when Casey Jones is kind of put on suspension when he is responsible for letting the Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady pretty much escape. I would have liked to have seen Casey Jones taking out his frustrations while playing hockey, since he says that he uses hockey as a way to express a lot of his anger issues. He uses hockey as to relax. I'd have liked to have seen a scene of that, but we don't get it. But what we do get, I think Steve Amell did a solid job as Casey Jones. Megan Fox returns once again as April O'Neil, and like in the first movie, she is passable. She's nothing great. The movie, hints and teases the romantic relationship between her and Jones, but because I don't think Megan Fox is that good of an actor, I really don't see the chemistry between her and Stephen Amell, and that's just me personally. The character of Vern Fenwick, who was actually in that first movie, returns in this movie as somebody who takes credit for the events of the first movie, and I like Will Arnett as an actor. I think he's actually pretty funny, a pretty funny actor, and I think he has good comedic moments in this movie as well. I think he's fine as the character of Vern Fenwick, who was in that first movie. He's in this movie. He was okay. He was solid. Seamus and Gary Anthony Williams and Seamus played Bebop and Rocksteady respectively, and I love Bebop and Rocksteady in this movie. I think they are a very underrated comedic duo. Seamus and Williams are. I think they're really, really funny off of one another, and I like the CGI look for Bebop and Rocksteady, and I like their action sequences when they're taking on the turtles. It's really fun to watch. Speaking of which, the CGI in this movie compared to the first, to me, looks much, much better in this movie, and there are moments where it kind of blends in with the real life surroundings. So I think the CGI to me is a vast improvement in this movie. The turtles look much better. Bebop and Rocksteady look really, really good as well. Now, this movie finally introduces us to Krang, whose whole thing is that he wants to collect these three artifacts to bring his Technodrome to Earth and conquer the Earth and conquer the world. That's the overall plot. The Turtles got to stop Krang, who is using Shredder to collect these artifacts. And Krang is voiced by Brad Garrett. And Krang, this is where my negatives come in. Krang is barely in the movie. You see him in the first half. You see him in the first half of the movie. He completely disappears in the second half, and then he comes in the climax to fight the turtles, and eventually loses. Krang has there's barely any Krang in this movie, and that is a big gripe I got with it because I wanted to see more Krang, especially since he's pretty much using Shredder as his patsy. I would have liked to have seen scenes of Shredder and Krang kind of having a conflict of interest, like with Shredder, not falling for Krang's plan, with Shredder pretty much being onto Krang and developing a contingency plan just in case Krang were to double cross him. That's not the case. The Shredder in this movie, he's pretty much a patsy and a lackey for Krang, and when Krang betrays him, he's completely shocked about it. I like Brian T as an actor. I think he's a vast improvement over the actor from the first movie, but the portrayal of Shredder in this movie is just stupid because Shredder is presented as a dope. He's presented as somebody who is easily manipulated. The Shredder I know would not trust Krang and would have a contingency plan just in case Krang would double cross him in some way. But in this movie, Krang double crosses Shredder and he freezes him and puts him into a collection box. One of the greatest villains in Turtle history is reduced to nothing in these movies. He wasn't all that great in the 2014 movie, and he's reduced to a patsy in this movie. Why is it that the original TMNT movie got Shredder right and did him justice, and these modern movies just can't put the nozzle on how to do Shredder the right way? I don't get it. I don't understand it. This movie also has Tyler Perry as Baxter Stockman, and I actually don't mind Tyler Perry as Baxter Stockman. I actually think Tyler Perry did a really good job playing Baxter Stockman. I particularly like this goofy laugh that he does all throughout the movie. You can tell that Perry's actually having a good time playing Baxter Stockman, and I like how Stockman's a henchman for Shredder, and Shredder's pretty much just using him. So that part is fun too. Again, I like the whole subplot of the Turtles fighting this mutagen that could potentially turn them human, and I also like how that the real world fears them until the end of the movie where they start to accept them. I thought all of that stuff was pretty good. So, and I also think that the directing in this movie is much better than how it was in the first movie. I think Dave Green did a much better job behind the director's chair. I like the action sequences in this movie, particularly the airplane scene and the Brazilian waterfalls and the Brazilian river chase scene with the Ninja Turtles and Bebop and Rocksteady. I think those two scenes are very entertaining. The Technodrome fight with Krang is fun for however long it lasts for. It kind of feels like it lasts for like a minute. It doesn't really go on long. Yeah, there's a whole lot more to talk about. Those are just my overall general thoughts on the Out of the Shadows sequel. Overall, I like it better than the 2014 movie. I think it's an improvement over that movie, though it does suffer from its own issues. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. It's better than the 2014 movie, but it has its own problems, but still very enjoyable. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.